welcome to Faith Thinkers, where ancient stories meet modern hearts, and Scripture becomes the lens through which we rediscover hope, courage, and purpose. In today's episode, we journey into the powerful, breathtaking world of Aramiel, the prophet of salvation and divine judgment, a man whose visions shook empires, restored nations, and revealed God's unbreakable plan for humanity. This is more than history. It's a reminder that even in a fractured world, God still speaks, still guides, and still calls ordinary people into extraordinary missions. Settle in. This story might just awaken something deep within you. Part 1. The World in Turmoil and the Birth of a Calling. A long time ago, in an age drenched in political tension and spiritual confusion, the land was split in two. Not merely by geography, but by loyalty, identity, and belief. The northern territories, stretching upward toward the vibrant hills and Renaissance bridges of Florence, were drifting further from their ancient roots. Meanwhile, the southern lands, reaching down toward the sunlight-washed shores near Alexandria, struggled to survive waves of instability and fear. People traveled freely between the two regions, but every conversation carried a shadow. Every market exchange, every religious gathering, every whispered prayer was stained by the knowledge that the nation was unraveling. Powerful neighbors, some friendly, some deceptive, circled like hawks overhead, waiting for their moment. In the midst of this fractured world lived a young man named Aramiel, a boy raised in a city of memory and majesty. Aramiel grew up in the ancient quarter of Rome, surrounded by towering basilicas, cracked marbled columns, and archways that held centuries of stories. As a child, he would often wander through the narrow cobblestone alleys near the Tiber River, clutching parchments of sacred writings handed down by generations of his family. He read them relentlessly, not out of duty, but out of a hunger he could never quite name. He wasn't like the other boys who spent their days racing along the piazzas or carving games into old stone walls. Aramiel noticed things. He noticed the elderly woman who sold figs from a basket, but kept only bruised ones for herself. He noticed the children whose shoes had long outlived their soles. He noticed how the wealthy merchants, cloaked in embroidered fabrics, walked past them as if they were invisible. He noticed, even then, that something in the soul of his nation was withering. His mother, a gentle yet strong woman named Solana, often placed her hands on his shoulders and whispered, "You see the world differently, my son. People like you are born for something bigger than themselves." Aramiel didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. The cracks in a golden age. While the world around him glimmered with progress, Aramiel saw the cracks no one else wanted to acknowledge. The rulers in Alexandria boasted of rising trade routes and prosperous harvests. The leaders in Florence celebrated advances in architecture and art, claiming the nation was entering a golden age. But Aramiel traveled enough through the markets and countryside to know the truth. Prosperity was not evenly shared. Peace was fragile. Faith was fading. And beneath the surface, corruption simmered like an unspoken sickness. He saw landowners adding estate upon estate, swallowing smaller homes and displacing families as with forced contracts and impossible taxes. He saw lawmakers growing suspiciously wealthy while the common citizen struggled to feed their children. What disturbed him most was the spiritual decay. Many people still attended worship rituals in Rome's grand cathedrals, but their hearts were elsewhere. Their prayers were empty echoes, beautiful in sound but hollow in intent. Meanwhile, others turned away from the ancient god altogether. They worshipped new idols, statues imported from foreign lands, golden charms promising fortune, even mystical stones purchased from traveling merchants. These objects filled their shelves but emptied their souls. Aramiel often knelt beside his window at night, staring at the flickering lanterns scattered across Rome's skyline. He whispered, "God, do you still see us? Do you still hear us?" He wasn't expecting an answer, but the heavens were listening. The rising storm from the East news traveled quickly through Rome's bustling streets. A powerful empire to the east, ruled from Istanbul, a city glittering with domes and towers, was gaining strength. Their armies grew larger with every passing season, and their commanders boasted openly about expanding westward. People in the northern region panicked first. They urged their leaders to form alliances with foreign powers, including cities as far away as Berlin or Vienna. They believed salvation could be purchased through treaties, chariots, and the sheer force of numbers. The southern leaders followed suit. They entertained political envoys who promised protection, riches, and power, but at the cost of loyalty and spiritual compromise. Aramiel watched these developments with growing unease, and he wrote in his journal, "When fear enters a nation's heart, truth becomes negotiable. And when truth becomes negotiable, destruction is never far behind." He didn't tell anyone, but he felt a strange stirring inside, like a quiet tug on his soul. Something was coming, something that would change his life forever. The night the heavens opened. It happened on a day that began like any other. Aramiel had traveled to Prague, where an ancient cathedral stood like a crown above the city's winding streets. He went there seeking quiet, hoping to clear his mind from the turmoil of the times. The cathedral was enormous. Vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows glowing like fire, and stone pillars carved with stories of saints long gone. It smelled of old incense and candle wax. Aramiel entered, sat alone near the front, and closed his eyes. That was when everything changed. The candles began to flicker violently, though there was no wind. The floor trembled beneath his feet. A low hum, like the sound of thousands of voices layered together, filled the air. Then, a burst of light exploded behind the altar. It wasn't violent, but it was powerful. It wasn't warm, but it was alive. It wasn't a light he saw with his eyes. It was a light he felt with his soul. Aramiel gasped as the light expanded into a radiant throne suspended above the altar. It was not made of gold or marble. It was made of something beyond earthly substance, something like pure holiness. And surrounding the throne were beings unlike anything he had ever imagined. They resembled the seraphim of old scripture, but they also felt new, alive, fierce, filled with both fire and tenderness. Each had 6 shimmering wings, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their feet, and 2 stretching outward in majestic flight. Their voices thundered through the cathedral like rolling waves. "Holy, holy, holy is the Eternal One. The whole earth is filled with His glory." The walls shook. The stained glass windows rattled. Aramiel's heart pounded so hard he felt it might burst. He fell to his knees, trembling uncontrollably. Then the shattered realization. In the presence of such perfection, Aramiel suddenly saw himself clearly. His weaknesses, his fears, the sins he tried to ignore, the bitterness he sometimes carried. The times he remained silent when he should have spoken. He whispered hoarsely, "I am unworthy. I am not clean. I live among unclean people. I should not be here." Tears streamed down his face. His chest ached with the weight of his own humanity. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the radiant beings swooped down toward him, carrying a glowing ember taken from the altar. The ember did not burn like fire. It pulsed like a living heart. The seraph pressed it gently against Aramiel's lips. He winced, expecting pain, but instead he felt something else. A release, a cleansing, a quiet, overwhelming sense of being forgiven. The being spoke softly, yet the words reverberated like thunder. "Your guilt has been removed. Your shame has been washed away. You are made clean." Aramiel felt the weight lift from his shoulders, weight he didn't even know he had been carrying. The light around him intensified, and something deep within him cracked open like stone breaking to reveal living water. The call that changed everything. Then he heard the voice. It wasn't the voice of the seraphim. It wasn't echoing from the walls. It wasn't external at all. It was a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere, from the throne above him and from the deepest chamber of his own soul. "Whom shall I send? Who will speak for us?" The question flooded his mind like a river. Time seemed to stop. Breath caught in his throat. He thought of the injustice he had seen, the suffering of widows, the hypocrisy of leaders, the spiritual emptiness infecting his people, the looming threats of foreign empires. He thought of the tears he had shed in silence, the prayers whispered in darkness, the longing he carried all his life. He didn't feel ready. He didn't feel strong. He didn't feel qualified, but he felt called. So Aramiel lifted his head, his voice trembling but resolute. "Here I am. Send me." The cathedral became calm, utterly calm, as though heaven itself paused to acknowledge his surrender. The light dimmed gently. The seraphim withdrew. The trembling subsided. Aramiel remained on the floor for a long time, breathing hard, overwhelmed, transformed. When he finally stood, he knew. Nothing in his life would ever be the same. A new beginning. Aramiel walked out of the cathedral into the cool Prague evening. The sky above him looked different, no longer distant but alive with purpose. The streets were the same, but he was not. The world's problems were the same, but his calling was new. He felt the weight of a mission he could not yet fully understand. He felt fear, yes, deep, honest fear. But he also felt courage blooming inside him, like a seed newly planted. And as he crossed the Charles Bridge that night, watching lanterns dance upon the river, he whispered to himself, "Whatever you ask, I will do. Wherever you lead, I will follow." The prophet had been born. The journey had begun. A nation would soon hear the voice God placed in him. But Aramiel's greatest challenges and greatest revelations were still ahead. Part 2. A mission against corruption, idols, and social injustice. The days that followed Aramiel's vision in the Prague Cathedral felt unreal, like walking between two worlds. He still saw the cobblestones, heard the chatter of merchants, smelled the aroma of roasted chestnuts drifting from street vendors. But inside his chest, something had shifted. He carried a fire now, a responsibility, a truth too heavy to ignore. His calling was no longer a mystery. It was the compass of his entire life. Yet he had no idea how fiercely that calling would be tested. a nation in denial. While Aramiel walked back toward Rome, messengers rushed through the countryside spreading grim news. The tension between Florence in the north and Alexandria in the south was spiraling. Trade agreements faltered. Leaders argued. The wealthy grew wealthier, and the poor were forgotten. The people believed they were strong. They believed their alliances would hold. They believed their religious ceremonies guaranteed them God's favor. But Aramiel knew what the truth was. He had felt it in the trembling walls of the cathedral. He had seen it in the eyes of the seraphim. A storm, political, moral, and spiritual, was coming, and God was calling him to be the voice that warned them. When he reached Rome, the capital buzzed with an anxious excitement. News from the royal courts in Alexandria and Florence told of rising dread, but the officials pretended everything was fine. They held feasts, they staged parades, they gave speeches about prosperity, growth, and national unity. Aramiel wanted to shout, "What unity? You can't unite a nation by ignoring its sickness." But he held his tongue, for now. Into the palace of the powerful. Within days, word spread that an extraordinary young man, Aramiel, had been seen emerging from the cathedral in Prague, visibly shaken, claiming he had seen visions of divine glory. The whispers grew, blending curiosity, suspicion, and awe. His reputation reached the ears of royal advisors. Soon, a messenger in a navy cloak approached him on the steps of a basilica in Rome. "Aramiel, son of Salana," the messenger announced, "the court of King Hadriel, ruler in Alexandria, requests your presence. They wish to know the meaning of your visions." Aramiel felt his stomach tighten. King Hadriel was known for two things: his fear, his pride disguised as strategy. He led Alexandria with trembling hands, but masked his insecurity behind ornate robes and armies of advisors. Still, Aramiel accepted the summons. If God was sending them into the palace, he would go. The journey to Alexandria took several days. When he finally arrived, the palace rose before him like a golden fortress, its marble pillars reaching toward the sky, its mosaic floors shimmering under lantern light. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also hollow. Aramiel felt it immediately. Inside, ministers argued, advisors paced, military leaders pored over maps showing looming threats from neighboring nations, particularly the Eastern Empire in Istanbul. When Aramiel entered the royal chamber, King Hadriel looked exhausted. His robes were elegant, but his posture sagged. "Speak," Hadriel said bluntly. "They say the Eternal One has spoken to you." Aramiel inhaled deeply. The air felt heavy. He began gently, "Your Majesty, I come not in my own name, but in the name of the one who rules over all nations. He showed me a vision." "Enough," one advisor snapped. "We don't need sermons. We need military strategy." Aramiel turned to him calmly. "Strategy cannot save you if your foundations are crumbling." Another advisor scoffed. "Our alliances will save us. Berlin has promised cavalry. Vienna has promised chariots. Cairo has pledged supplies. We will be fine." Aramiel felt a surge of sorrow. These men were leaning on broken reeds. He fixed his eyes on King Hadriel. "Your Majesty, these alliances will fail you. You are placing your trust in treaties and weapons instead of the Eternal One." The room erupted in protest. "Blasphemy! Treason! Silence him!" But Hadriel raised his hand. "Let him speak." Aramiel continued, voice steady but burning with truth. Your nation is sick. You seek protection from foreign powers, but ignore the sickness within your walls: corruption, injustice, and idolatry. The Eternal One is calling you back to him." Hadriel swallowed hard. For a moment, Aramiel thought he might listen, but the king's fear overtook his faith. He dismissed Aramiel with polite words that meant nothing. The first battle had been fought, but not won. The idolatry crisis. Golden towers in foreign lands. Aramiel returned from Alexandria with a heavy heart. His next mission led him northward, toward Florence and beyond, through lands filled with newly imported cultural influences. Wherever he traveled, he found people chasing a new obsession: the golden towers of Dubai. Travelers returned with shimmering idols, metallic figures of fortune, golden orbs promised to attract blessing, crystal animals said to channel prosperity. People filled their shelves with them. Even some priests purchased these artifacts. What harm could it do? They insisted. They're symbols. Aramiel knew better. He stood one morning in the center of a crowded square in Milan, holding one of these idols in his hand. The crowd looked at him with curiosity and amusement. "You worship the work of your own hands," he declared. "You trust in glittering objects that promise what only God can give: security, prosperity, identity." The crowd murmured. Some looked ashamed. Others looked furious. "These idols cannot see you," Aramiel said. "They cannot hear you. They cannot heal you. They cannot save you." A wealthy merchant shouted, "People want something they can touch. Your God is invisible." Aramiel replied, "Invisible, but alive. Invisible, but real. Invisible, but present." Then, in a moment, guided by something beyond himself, he dropped the golden figure to the ground. It shattered. Gasps rippled across the square. Aramiel raised his voice, filled with conviction. What is broken so easily should never be worshipped so deeply. The crowd fell silent. Some walked away uncomfortable. Some stayed, tears forming. Some knelt then and there, hearts stirred for the first time in years. Social injustice through modern eyes. If idolatry was the nation's spiritual illness, social injustice was its bleeding wound. In Rome, Aramiel traveled through neighborhoods often ignored by those in power. He visited cramped apartments above crowded markets. He walked alongside fishermen repairing nets on the riverbanks. He sat with widows whose husbands had died working in unsafe mills. Everywhere he saw suffering made worse by indifference. A mother fired unjustly. He met a woman named Marielle, dismissed from her job for refusing the advances of a wealthy supervisor. She had 3 children and no way to provide for them. As she wept, Aramiel's heart broke. "Justice is not a privilege," he told her. "It is a right." He confronted the supervisor publicly the next day, calling out his abuse. The man, embarrassed and furious, tried to dismiss Aramiel, but the crowd supported the prophet. Word spread, and Marielle was reinstated. Farmers losing their land. In Tuscany, Aramiel met farmers forced from their vineyards due to unfair contracts demanded by aristocratic landowners. One elderly farmer gripped Aramiel's hands, tears streaming down his weathered face. "They take our land," he whispered. "They take our dignity. What will we have left?" Aramiel replied softly, "As long as God is on his throne, justice will not sleep forever." He told the people, "A nation that crushes its poor is a nation sowing its own destruction." Children denied education. In the outskirts of Florence, He found children barred from learning because their families couldn't afford school fees. Their dreams were locked behind financial gates. Aramiel visited the school, speaking to the administrators with unwavering authority. Learning is not a luxury. It is a gift from God. Let these children in. His voice carried such conviction that even the headmaster trembled. The next day, the policy changed. Everywhere Aramiel walked, he planted seeds of justice. The vineyard parable reimagined. One early morning, while traveling through a valley in Tuscany, Aramiel passed rows of vineyards stretching like emerald ribbons across the hills. Memories of the ancient parable stirred within him. Villagers gathered as he stood between the vines and spoke. There was once a vineyard owner who cared for his land with devotion. He planted the finest grapes, built a watchtower for protection, and prepared a winepress for the harvest. But when the time came, the vines produced only sour grapes. The people listened, quiet and mesmerized. The Eternal One cared for our nation the same way, lovingly, faithfully. But instead of justice, we produced oppression. Instead of righteousness, we grew corruption. Some bowed their heads, some wiped their eyes. Aramiel continued, "If a vineyard refuses to yield good fruit, the owner will remove its walls. He will let it fall into disrepair, not out of cruelty, but because neglected land must be rebuilt anew." The message struck their hearts. He wasn't condemning them. He was calling them back. A political crisis with King Hadriel. Not long after Aramiel's teachings began spreading, Alexandria's messengers sought him again. The situation was dire. Two northern alliances, empires centered near Warsaw and Minsk, had united and threatened invasion. King Hadriel was terrified. His advisors panicked. The people trembled. Aramiel traveled to Alexandria once more. He found Hadriel pacing in his palace, hands shaking. "What should I do?" the king asked. "The armies are coming. Tell me what your God says. Should we call Berlin, Vienna, Cairo?" Aramiel shook his head. "Be careful. Stay calm. Do not fear those nations. Their anger burns like dying embers. They roar loudly, but they fade quickly." Hadriel's eyes widened. "But they are powerful." "Not more powerful than the one who made the heavens," Aramiel answered. The king hesitated, so God, in his mercy, offered Hadriel a sign. "Ask for anything," Aramiel said. "A sign from the deepest valley or the highest heaven." Hadriel refused, not out of humility, but because he had already chosen not to trust. So Aramiel delivered a prophecy, one that would echo for generations. "A child will be born, and he will be called Eloren," meaning God among us. The king looked confused. His advisors whispered nervously. They didn't understand, but heaven had spoken. Part 3. Miracles, Signs, and the Clash with Empires. The turmoil in the nation did not quiet after Aramiel's warnings. If anything, it intensified. Word of his bold speeches in Florence, his confrontation with the idolatry crisis in Milan, and his fearless rebukes in Alexandria traveled faster than caravans could carry it. Some called him a prophet. Others labeled him a threat. But no matter where he walked, people gathered. They wanted to hear what he had to say, whether out of curiosity, hope, or fear. The air around the nation felt charged, as if something extraordinary was brewing. Aramiel himself felt it too. He sensed that the Eternal One was about to move. Not subtly, not quietly, but in a way that would shake kingdoms and redefine destinies. A king on the brink, the story of Lyran far to the west. In the towering stone fortress known as Edinburgh Castle, ruled King Lyoran, one of the few rulers whose heart still sought God. He had inherited a fractured kingdom. He governed a weary people. He carried the weight of decisions that could make or break nations. Lyoran was nothing like King Hadriel of Alexandria. Where Hadriel was anxious and reactionary, Lyoran was steady and reflective. Where Hadriel trusted alliances, Lyoran trusted prayer. Still, he was human, and even the strongest hearts can crack. One morning, messengers arrived from the northern front lines with devastating news. The powerful empire led from Istanbul, swift, ruthless, relentless, had begun advancing again. Their armies were enormous, their strategies brilliant, their ambition unmatched. People trembled at the mere mention of their generals. Nations fell before their chariots. Rumors claimed their soldiers marched night and day without rest. Lyoran, tired from long nights of council, collapsed onto his throne. "Is there no end to this unrest?" he whispered. But the news grew worse. A week later, the king fell sick. Not with an ordinary fever, but with an illness so sudden and aggressive that even the palace physicians trembled. His skin turned pale, his breath shallow, his strength fading by the hour. Word swept through the city. The king may die. Fear spread like wildfire. That was when the Eternal One sent Aramiel to Edinburgh. The miracle of life extended. Aramiel arrived to find the palace cast in gloom. Servants whispered in dark corridors. Advisors argued behind closed doors. The sound of weeping occasionally echoed through the great stone hallways. When Aramiel entered the king's private chamber, he found King Lyoran lying weakly on his bed, staring out the window toward the cloudy Scottish sky. The king looked decades older than when Aramiel had last seen him. Lyoran's voice was barely a whisper. "Aramiel, I knew you would come." Aramiel approached, his heart heavy. "My king, the Eternal One has seen your tears. He has heard your prayers." Lyoran closed his eyes. A single tear slipped down his cheek. "I asked him for more time," the king murmured. "Not for myself, but for my people. They are afraid. They need stability. They need guidance. I do not want to leave them in chaos." Aramiel gently placed his hand on Lyoran's arm. "Then hear this. The Eternal One says, I will heal you. I will add years to your life." The room fell silent. Even the flickering lanterns seemed to pause. The physicians gasped. Servants stopped breathing for a moment. Lyoran's eyes widened with shock and hope. "But how will I know?" he whispered. Aramiel turned toward the large window overlooking the city. He pointed at the courtyard below, where the shadow of Big Ben's enormous clock tower cast a long line across the stones. "In 3 moments' time," Aramiel declared, "the shadow will turn backward." "Backward?" a physician repeated. "That is impossible." But Aramiel spoke with the steady authority of heaven, and heaven was listening. As everyone watched, the courtyard grew strangely quiet. The wind stilled, the clouds parted, the afternoon sunlight grew brighter, unnaturally bright. Then it happened. The shadow stretched, paused, and slowly, impossibly, moved in reverse. Gasps filled the room. Some cried, some fell to their knees. Aramiel closed his eyes in reverent silence. This is the sign that the Eternal One will keep his promise. Within days, Lyoran's strength returned. Color flushed back into his cheeks. His fever broke. He stood, walked, and finally returned to the palace balcony where thousands gathered below, cheering with awe and gratitude. The miracle spread throughout the nation like a melody of hope. If God could reverse the shadows for their king, then he could reverse the fate of the nation too. The empire draws near, a gathering storm. But the empire from Istanbul was not deterred. If anything, the miracle in Edinburgh enraged them. Their generals viewed it as an act of defiance, a challenge to their authority. Soon, reports flooded in, ships gathering near the Greek coast, soldiers marching past the ruins of ancient Corinth, armies setting their sights toward Athens, preparing a massive assault. Panic spread through allied cities. Advisors urged King Laoran to form new alliances. Send envoys to Cairo. Request reinforcements from Berlin. Ask Vienna to join the war. But Aramiel shook his head. They cannot save you, he warned. Alliances will crumble. Promises will fail. The only shield that will stand is the Eternal One. Some listened. Many did not. Fear is louder than faith in the hearts of the unanchored. King Laoran found himself torn. He trusted God, but he also felt the crushing pressure of responsibility. Every decision affected thousands of lives. The weight was overwhelming. One night, burdened with fear, Laoran walked alone along the castle ramparts. The wind whipped through his hair. The night sky over Edinburgh flickered with distant lightning. He whispered into the darkness, "Lord, what do? I want to trust you, but the enemy is so large, and I am only a man." A presence stirred beside him. It was Aramiel. "You do not stand alone," the prophet said quietly. "Nor does this nation. The Eternal One does not abandon those who call upon him." The king bowed his head. "Then pray with me." And under that storm-kissed sky, the two men prayed, not for weapons, not for allies, but for courage. The night god fought for them. The invading empire set its final camp just outside Athens. Their tents stretched for miles. Their banners flapped in the wind like dark omens. Their torches glowed like a sea of fire. The people in nearby cities despaired. "How can anyone survive such an army?" they cried. Laoran called Aramiel into the war chamber. "What will happen?" the king asked. Aramiel answered with quiet conviction. "The Eternal One himself will defend this land, not by our strength, but by his." So the armies of Laoran prepared, not with frantic fear, but with solemn resolve. And then came the night. The empire's soldiers slept confidently, certain of their victory at dawn. But sometime after midnight, a strange wind swept through the valley. Witnesses said it sounded like thousands of wings brushing the air. Some soldiers woke in terror, seeing blinding flashes of light darting between their tents. Others claimed they heard thunder, though the sky was clear. By sunrise, the impossible had happened. The enemy camp was silent, totally still, unnervingly calm. Scouts approached cautiously. What they found changed the course of history. The army, numbering in the tens of thousands, was gone. Not retreating, not hiding. Gone. Some said they fled in fear during the night. Others insisted divine beings had scattered them. Rumors spread like wildfire through the Mediterranean. The Eternal One fights for Laoran's kingdom. The terror of Istanbul's empire evaporated. Their generals retreated, humiliated. Their expansion halted. The people of the divided lands, Florence, Alexandria, Rome, stood in awe. For the first time in many years, hope rose like dawn. Warnings to the nations of the world following the miraculous deliverance Aramiel traveled to other regions, cities known for their pride, wealth, and influence, to deliver messages of warning and hope. To Dubai, modern Babylon. In the heart of the city, amid shimmering skyscrapers and luxury beyond reason, Aramiel spoke. "You've built towers that touch the sky, but your foundation is sand. Pride precedes collapse. Turn your hearts before your wealth becomes your ruin." Some scoffed, some listened. The message landed like a seed waiting for its moment. To Cairo, modern Egypt, standing near the banks of the Nile. You trust in your history, your armies, your knowledge, but none of these will save you in the day of trouble. Seek the one who rules above all kings. The ministers frowned, but the fishermen nodded. To Petra, modern Moab, among the carved red cliffs. Your arrogance isolates you. Your strength has become your prison. Humble yourselves, and mercy will meet you. The villagers bowed their heads. To Venice, modern Tyre. On the canals, he declared, "You trade in luxury, but neglect the needy. Your wealth deceives you. Return to compassion, or your waters will testify against you." Travelers later whispered. The prophet's words lingered in the fog. A prophet caught between heaven and earth, Aramiel had become a symbol. To some, a beacon, to others, a threat. His messages cut deep. His authority unsettled kings. His compassion stirred the common people. But the journey ahead would demand even more of him. More courage, more sacrifice, more surrender. For the Eternal One was not finished with him yet. Part 3 closes not with resolution, but with a sense of gathering momentum. More visions awaited. More battles, spiritual and political, would unfold. And the greatest prophecies of Aramiel's life were still to come. Our Part 4. The visions of restoration, the coming Redeemer, and the hope for all nations. The miracles, the battles, the collapses of empires, all of it changed the nation forever. Yet, even after witnessing divine intervention, the people still struggled to understand the deeper heart of God. They saw his judgment. They saw his protection. But they did not fully grasp his vision for restoration, renewal, and the redemption that would one day reach every nation and every soul. Aramiel, now respected as a prophet across vast regions, from Florence to Alexandria, from Rome to Edinburgh, began receiving visions unlike anything he had ever known. These were not merely warnings or declarations. They were glimpses into God's future work, flashes of a world remade, promises of a Redeemer who would carry light into the deepest shadows of human hearts. And these visions would become the center of his prophetic legacy. 1. The branch of Serene, a vision in Yosemite. One evening, as Aramiel prayed alone in the quiet of Yosemite National Park, a wind whispered through the towering sequoias. Their ancient trunks glowed faintly in the moonlight. Then the air shifted, gentle, warm, and overwhelming in its purity. He felt the presence before he heard the voice. Aramiel. Look. The trees around him grew brighter, their branches shimmering with life as if infused with sacred fire. A stump, rotted, forgotten, suddenly sprouted a tender green shoot. It rose swiftly, strong and vibrant, bursting with color and fragrance. "This," the voice said, "is the branch of Serene." Aramiel fell to his knees. What does it mean? The vision unfolded. A child stood in the clearing, a young girl named Salora, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with hair like sunlight and eyes full of peace. Around her, creatures that would normally be enemies rested side by side. A wolf curled beside a lamb. A leopard lounged next to a young goat. A bear and a cow grazed together, and Salora walked among them fearlessly, her small hand resting gently on the thick fur of a lion. None harmed her, none threatened her. None were afraid, a world made whole. A creation returned to harmony, a peace deeper than anything the broken nations had ever known. Aramiel trembled as the vision wrapped around him. "It is not a dream," the voice continued, "but a promise. One day a Redeemer will rise from the line of kings, unexpected, humble, yet filled with my spirit. He will bring justice. He will heal the oppressed. He will establish a kingdom of peace that no empire can overthrow." Aramiel whispered, "When will this happen?" "When the hearts of the people have been refined," the Eternal One replied, "and when the world is ready to receive him." The vision faded slowly, like a sunrise disappearing into the night, but its truth burned inside Aramiel's heart like a fire he could not quench. 2. The Suffering Redeemer, a vision by the old city walls. Days later, Aramiel journeyed to the ancient stone walls surrounding the old part of Jerusalem. He felt drawn there, called there. As he stood overlooking the city, shadows stretching long with evening light, a weight settled upon his chest. Then came the vision. He saw a figure, the one of mercy, standing alone on a dusty path. His appearance was humble, almost unimpressive. There was nothing majestic in his form, nothing royal in his clothing, nothing that would attract crowds, and yet something radiated from him, something unearthly: love, grace, purpose woven with sorrow. Suddenly, the scene shifted. Aramiel saw the Redeemer surrounded by cruel men. They mocked him, beat him, spat on him. His back tore open under whips, his face bruised from fists, his body bent under the force of hatred. Aramiel gasped. Why is he suffering? Why must he be humiliated? The Eternal One spoke softly. He carries what they cannot carry. He pays what they cannot pay. His wounds will heal their deepest wounds. The vision intensified. The Redeemer was pierced. Hands, feet, side, the crowd jeered. Yet, through his agony, his eyes held no bitterness, no rage, only love so profound it made Aramiel's chest ache. Tears streamed down Aramiel's face. The Eternal One whispered, "For their sin, he will be crushed. For their shame, he will bear stripes. Through his pain, peace will come. Through his sacrifice, humanity will be redeemed." The vision shifted again, and Aramiel saw the Redeemer restored, alive, radiant, triumphant. Death had not defeated him. Pain had not crushed him. Darkness had not silenced him. He became the very heartbeat of hope. When the vision ended, Aramiel collapsed to the ground, shaking. A Redeemer who would suffer. A Savior who would bleed. A Messiah who would take the pain of the world upon himself. This was unlike any prophecy ever spoken before. "Give me the words," Aramiel whispered. "I must tell them." And God answered. And Aramiel wrote. And the world would one day tremble at the prophecy of the suffering Redeemer. 3. The Banquet of All Peoples, a feast on Mount Fuji. One morning, Aramiel awoke with a divine urgency pulling at his spirit. He journeyed eastward, crossing seas and plains until he reached the slopes of Mount Fuji, rising like a crown above the landscape. There, the Eternal One granted him another vision. The mountain transformed before him, no longer snow-capped, but covered with brilliant light. On its peak stretched a massive table, adorned with foods from every culture: bread from Florence, olives from Athens, fruits from Cairo, spices from India, rice from Japan, and wines from Tuscany. People from all nations climbed the mountain with tears of exhaustion and hope. They sat around the table, former enemies, divided cultures, rival nations, every skin tone, every tongue, and ate together as though they had always been family. As they ate, joy washed over them, laughter rose, pain melted, shame dissolved. Then the Eternal One appeared, not in fearsome majesty, but in comforting warmth, and gently wiped tears from the eyes of each person. He removed the shroud of grief blanketing humanity. He destroyed death's shadow. He filled their hearts with joy unending. Aramiel wept again. "Is this truly your plan for the world?" "Yes," God replied. "This feast is coming, a day when every tribe and nation will gather, not to fight, not to divide, but to rejoice in my salvation." Aramiel bowed deeply. This was not just a prophecy. It was a blueprint for hope. 4. Promise of a new world, a renewed New York City. Years passed, and Aramiel carried many burdens. For prophecy is not only the speaking of truth, it is the feeling of the world's sorrow. One night, exhausted and discouraged, he prayed for a vision that could restore his own weary heart. God answered. The ground around him disappeared, replaced by the illuminated skyline of New York City, but transformed. No violence, no corruption, no sorrow, no sirens, no homelessness, no despair. The skyscrapers shone like crystal. Parks were lush with life. The streets were safe for every child. Music drifted from open windows. People smiled without fear. Neighbors loved one another with sincerity. This was not the old world patched together. It was a new creation. This, the Eternal One said, is the future I will bring, not just for this city, but for all creation. Aramiel saw children playing where once crime had ruled. He saw families healed. He saw justice flowing like water, mercy like a mighty stream. Everything broken had been restored. Everything lost had been returned. The prophet whispered, "Lord, how can such a world come to be?" God answered, "Through the Redeemer, through my Spirit, through the renewal of hearts, through the final healing of creation." Aramiel breathed deeply, soaking in the hope of it all. A new world, not imagined, promised. 5. Comfort to the exiles. A harbor in San Francisco. One final vision came while Aramiel stood on the shores of San Francisco, watching ships roll in and out of the Golden Gate. The salty air brushed across his face, and he saw men, women, and children standing along the harbor, exiles returning home. Their clothes were worn, their expressions carried miles of sorrow. But hope shone in their eyes because they heard a voice calling, "Do not fear, I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." A great bridge, like the Golden Gate itself, glowed with golden light as people crossed it, leaving behind years of captivity, guilt, and shame. The Eternal One walked beside them. "When you pass through the waters," he said, "I will be with you. When you walk through fire, you will not be burned, for I am the Lord your God." Aramiel understood. This vision was not only for ancient exiles, it was for every wandering soul in every generation. The God of creation was calling humanity home, not to a land, but to his heart. Part 5. The final vision, the great invitation, and a message for the modern soul. For many years, Aramiel had been a voice in the wilderness of nations. He had confronted kings, comforted widows, rebuked corruption, shattered idols, and unveiled visions that would echo across centuries. He had stood on mountaintops, in deserts, in palaces, in ruins, and in bustling cities. He had faced both admiration and hostility. But nothing prepared him for the final set of visions. Visions unlike anything he had ever experienced. They were broader than borders, deeper than history. They touched not only nations, but the very soul of humanity. It began one night as Aramiel walked through the dimly lit streets of Barcelona's Gothic quarter, its ancient stones glowing faintly under lantern light. He carried a broken lantern, as instructed by the Eternal One. For 40 days he had walked with it, letting its fractured glass symbolize the fractured state of the world, a world desperate for light but unable to produce light of its own. Tonight was the 40th night, and heaven was ready to speak. 1. The final confrontations. Truth versus deception. Aramiel entered the Grand Hall of the Palais Garnier in Paris, the Royal Council Chamber temporarily relocated due to political gatherings of multiple nations. Marble pillars gleamed under chandeliers. High-ranking officials, scholars, and religious leaders filled the hall, eager, but not for truth. They wanted validation. They wanted control. They wanted a prophet who would serve their agenda. They did not know the Eternal One had other plans. As Aramiel stepped onto the center platform, murmurs rippled through the room. There he is, the prophet from Rome, the one who claims to see visions, the one who challenges kings, the one who turned nations upside down. King Hadriel of Alexandria was there too, older now, but still ruled by fear. King Lyran was present as well, calm and steady, his eyes filled with wisdom. The two monarchs could not have been more different. Hadriel rose first. "Prophet," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "we have respected your words in the past, but now the nations are restless. Your warnings disrupt our alliances. Your prophecies stir unrest. Why continue to divide us with doom and visions?" Aramiel looked at him with compassion, not anger. "I do not divide you," he replied. "Truth divides you from the lies you cling to." The room grew tense. A scholar stepped forward. "If you truly hear from the Eternal One, then tell us, which nation will rise next? Which power will rule? Which empire will prevail?" Aramiel's eyes narrowed with sorrow. "You still think God plays your political games. You ask who will rule the earth, but you ignore who should rule your hearts." Some scoffed. Others shifted uncomfortably. Then Aramiel's voice grew stronger. "You have made idols of nations. You have made gods of flags. You have worshipped your own power instead of the one who gives power." The council erupted in outrage. "Silence him! He insults our sovereignty. He threatens our rule." But King Lyoran stood. "Let him speak," he said firmly. Aramiel continued, "You ask for messages that elevate your kingdoms. But the Eternal One asks for repentance that transforms your souls." His words struck like lightning. In that moment, heaven itself seemed to lean into earthly affairs. 2. Symbolic actions expanded. Lantern, olive tree, and letters across the sea. After leaving Paris, Aramiel sensed the Eternal One calling him into a season of symbolic acts. Visual sermons that would communicate truths too deep for words alone. A broken lantern. Through Barcelona, 40 days. For 40 days, Aramiel walked through Barcelona with a shattered lantern. People followed him, puzzled. Some asked questions. Some mocked him. Some cried. On the 40th night, at the edge of the Mediterranean Sea, Aramiel lifted the lantern high. "The world is broken," he said, "but the Eternal One is the light that shines through the cracks." A sudden wind blew, igniting the lantern miraculously. Light spilled out through every fracture. The crowd gasped. Hope glimmered through brokenness, beauty through imperfection, God's power through human weakness. An olive tree in the valley of Jericho. Next, Aramiel journeyed to the sun-scorched valley near Jericho. The ground was dry, cracked, lifeless. "Plant a tree," the Eternal One said. Aramiel knelt and planted a small olive shoot. "This tree," he proclaimed, "will outlive empires. It will grow even in barren land. So will the faith of those who trust the Eternal One. Empires fall, but mercy endures." Wind swirled around the valley. The shoot shimmered. Some said its leaves glowed like silver. Letters of hope across the sea. Finally, Aramiel wrote letters. Messages of encouragement, repentance, and restoration. He sealed them in wax, placed them in jars, and cast them into the Mediterranean. Travelers later claimed the jars washed up in distant lands, on the shores of Cyprus, the beaches of Haifa, the harbors of Athens, even as far as Malta. Open them, and each letter contained the same phrase: "The Eternal One still sees you. Return to him, and he will return to you." 3. The Great Invitation. The Prophet at the Grand Canyon. The most sweeping vision came as Aramiel stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon, its vastness echoing the depths of eternity. The sky above was clear and immense. The canyon glowed with layers of red, gold, and fire. There he felt the Eternal One speak unmistakably. "Call them, all of them." So Aramiel lifted his hands and shouted across the canyon, his voice echoing through every crevice. "Come, all who are thirsty." The wind carried his words. "Come, those who have no money. Come, buy and eat without cost." His voice shook with divine compassion. "You spend your lives on what cannot satisfy. You chase careers that never fill you. You pursue relationships that cannot heal you. You consume pleasures that cannot soothe you." He paused, letting the canyon breathe with him. "Listen to me, and you will delight in what is truly good. Turn your ear toward truth, and your soul will live." He felt tears running down his face. "For the Eternal One will make with you an everlasting covenant, one filled with kindness, mercy, and renewal." The canyon glowed with light, not sunlight, but something deeper, and Aramiel sensed that this invitation was not just for ancient nations, but for every weary soul of every generation, including those who would hear this message centuries later. 4. The New Heavens and New Earth, a cinematic renewal of creation. On the final night of Aramiel's prophetic ministry, the Eternal One gave him one last vision, a sweeping panorama of the future restoration of all creation. It began with deserts blooming, the Sahara erupting with wildflowers, petals spreading across dunes like rivers of color. Forests in Yellowstone flourished, trees towering, wildlife thriving, rivers crystal clear. Oceans gleamed with purity. No pollution, no warships, no storms born of climate imbalance, just peace. Cities healed, not rebuilt with greed, but reborn with compassion. People walked without fear. Nations embraced like long-lost brothers. Creation sang again, and above it all, a voice echoed, "I am making all things new." Aramiel saw no death, no crying, no mourning, no pain. All former things had passed away. He fell to the ground in awe. "Lord, How can this be? And the Eternal One replied, It will come through my Redeemer, through my final victory, through my love which no power can stop. 5. Final Reflections, the Prophet's Last Message. Aramiel returned to his home in Rome's ancient quarter. He was older now, his hair silvered, his hands weathered by decades of ministry. Yet his eyes still carried the fire of heaven. Crowds often gathered outside his home, hoping for one more prophecy, one more prayer, one more word. One twilight evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Aramiel spoke his final public message. My beloved people, the Eternal One is a God of justice, but he is also a God of mercy, a God of truth, but also a God of tenderness, a God who shakes nations, but also a God who whispers to lonely hearts. He smiled gently. You have seen judgment. You have seen victory. You have seen signs, but greater things are coming. He lifted his hands. The Redeemer is coming. He will bind the broken. He will lift the oppressed. He will carry our sorrows. He will restore creation, and he will invite all nations into a kingdom that cannot be shaken. He looked into the eyes of the people gathered. Laborers, mothers, scholars, soldiers, outcasts, children. And when you feel afraid, when the world trembles, when nations roar, remember this: the Eternal One has not forgotten you. The light still shines. Hope still breathes. Mercy still flows. And the new world is already on its way. With that, Aramiel blessed them. And the prophet's mission, from cleansing visions in Prague to apocalyptic hope in Yosemite, from judgments in Paris to invitations at the Grand Canyon, came to its divinely orchestrated close. But his message did not end. It lived on. It spread. It shaped generations. And it whispered across centuries to come. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey through the life and visions of Aramiel. If this story stirred your heart, remember, the same God who guided prophets still guides you today through every desert, every shadow, every storm. Here at Faith Thinkers, we believe faith isn't just learned, it's lived, questioned, explored, and reborn. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs a reminder of God's hope and restoration. Until next time, keep seeking truth, keep thinking deeply, and keep your heart open to the voice that still whispers, Behold, I am making all things new.